afternoon, everybody. It is such a privilege for me to be able to introduce Dr. Jules White to all of you. Dr. White is a National Science Foundation Career Award recipient. His research has won multiple Best Paper Awards, and as Dean of Strategic Learning Programs, he led the online MS in Computer Science at Vanderbilt to the #1 ranking by Fortune for an online MS in Computer Science degrees. His research focuses on cybersecurity and mobile cloud computing in domains ranging from healthcare to manufacturing. On a personal note, I told Dr. White I would share this story with you. The provost at my institution, Cedar Crest College, heard Dr. White speak in the fall, early in the fall. And he came back and he said, we need an AI strategy. We need it now. And I said, great, go. Guided by some of the resources, he has really led a transformation on our campus so that my admissions offices, advancement offices are using AI. We're getting the faculty there. That's a little bit of a longer conversation, but I'm really personally very grateful to Dr. White for sparking an important conversation on my campus about the uses of AI, and I know people do the same here. So please join me in welcoming Dr. White.
Well, thank you for having me. I always tell people the reason I'm excited about generative AI in this whole space is that November 1st of 2022, if you'd stopped me on the street and you'd said this thing called ChatGPT is going to come out at the end of the month, and here's what it's going to be able to do, I would have said, trust me, I'm a professor in computer science. I will not live to see that level of advance in computing. And then a month later, something would have come out that I did not believe would exist in my lifetime. And so to me, this is the most exciting moment of my career. Something that is science fiction has just taken place in terms of technical achievement. And so I look around and see, what are we doing with this? And basically what I see is we're focusing on student cheating and Terminator, as opposed to how do we fundamentally reshape our world with what I believe is the most important technical advance that I'll ever see. And it was one that I did not expect. So part of what I did is I went and started thinking about how do I explain to people why this is so important and what you can do with it. And so I created a number of online courses on Coursera. The first one I created is this prompt engineering for ChatGPT. They have about 600,000 people in them, and they're growing at about 1,000 a day. But the most interesting thing for me is that there are over 1,000 companies that are paying for their employees to go through them. And what this does is it gives me insight into how industry is being reshaped by this technology and also where they're struggling. And the really exciting thing is that this is going to be used in so many creative and interesting ways, very interdisciplinary ways, which I think provides a really excellent opportunity for higher ed. And I'm going to kind of give you some examples that help to understand why this is such an important technology, but why it's also one that's different than you think. It's one that is very interdisciplinary. It democratizes computing in really exciting ways, and it provides a role for higher education that I think is critically important. So the first thing that I see that people get wrong about generative AI is they think of it as a question and answer machine. So they use it like internet search. So you go and you ask it a question, it gives you an answer, and the answer is either right or wrong. And if it's wrong, you say, oh, look how dumb ChatGPT is. I can't believe anybody would ever use this. It makes so many mistakes. And you see this kind of behavior in like the legal community and many other communities. And the problem is that this is not the right way to use it. You don't want to think of using it in a one-off fashion like we've used internet search. You want to think about iteratively solving problems through a conversation. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to give you an example of a conversation, and we're going to solve a problem. So here's the simple task we're going to solve. Please create a meal plan for my family that's based on a fusion of food from Ethiopia and Uzbekistan. I want to eat keto and up to 2,000 calories per day. Pick dishes where the ingredients are easy to get from an average US grocery store. So we're going to have a conversation with ChatGPT, and we're going to solve this problem. Now, this is a task that I don't think that there is a human being in this room or Nashville or probably the world that can do it as well as ChatGPT. So what does it say? Here's a sample meal plan. Breakfast, scrambled eggs with sauteed onions, tomatoes, and Ethiopian berbere spice mix. And then notice what it does, in parentheses, made with chili powder, paprika, garlic powder, ginger, cumin, and coriander. And it's signaling to us, these are ingredients that you can get at an average US grocery store. Now, absolutely nothing that we had in computing could do something like this before ChatGPT came out, could understand the concept of average US grocery store. Now, a lot of people take issue with me saying understand. And so I say, well, I don't know if it actually understands, but I don't care as a computer scientist. I care that I have a computing tool now that can help me get answers that look like they approximated an average US grocery store, because I didn't have that before. But a lot of people look at this, and this is where they would stop, because they would say, you said 2,000 calories, and it failed in the most basic aspect. It didn't give you serving sizes. So if I really care about serving sizes, I just follow up in the conversation, and I say, in my next message, can you give me an approximate serving size for myself for each dish that is within my 2,000 calorie limit? And it comes back, and now it says 2 eggs, half a cup of onions, half a cup of tomatoes, 1 teaspoon of Berbera spice mix. And when people go and they use it in this one-off way, where we ask it a question that's either perfect or imperfect, it's like somebody handling Michelangelo a hammer. And he walks up to the stone, he whacks the stone with the hammer, and he looks at it. He says, oh, it's not a beautiful sculpture. And he throws the hammer down. It's a terrible tool. Why would anybody use it? No, that's not what he does. He continues to chisel away at the stone, but he also understands that his skill with the tool is equally important, if not most important. And this is the way generative AI works. It's something where we have to build our skills with the tools, but we also have to use it in an iterative fashion. Now, a lot of people would look at this and say, half a cup of onions, that's too many carbs for me in the morning. We could continue to refine the macronutrients in this conversation, but I'm going to take the conversation in a different direction and solve a different part of the problem in my house. So the problem I'm going to solve is I have a marketing problem at home. How do I get my 9-year-old, he's now 11 because I've been giving a version of this talk for a while. How do I get my 9-year-old to try these dishes? So what can I do to market to him? So I'm going to follow up with ChatGPT, and I'm going to get ChatGPT's help. Same conversation. My son is 9. Sometimes he won't try new dishes. To make this culinary adventure more fun for him, can you create a short Pokemon battle story to go with each dish? I'll read the stories with him before dinner to get him excited about trying the new food. Make sure the story ends with a cliffhanger that will motivate him to try the food. So I'm not particularly good at keto, Uzbek, Ethiopian meal plans. I'm really bad at translating them into Pokemon battle stories that end with cliffhangers to motivate 9-year-olds. But it turns out ChatGPT is pretty good at it. Story. Pikachu and his friends were exploring the wilds of Ethiopia when they were suddenly ambushed by a group of sneaky Pokemon thieves. As they raced through the dense jungle, they stumbled upon a hidden cave with treasure. And then it goes on and it says, in the end, they emerged victorious, but not before the dragon left a fiery spice that imbued their breakfast eggs with a flavorful kick. Can you help Pikachu and his friends defeat the Berbera dragon and enjoy this spicy breakfast? So it understood you need to end with a cliffhanger to motivate a 9-year-old to try the dish. Now, if you think about what this is going to do in marketing and so many other dimensions, it's just moved computing the domain of human ideas and thought. And that is something we did not have before. Now I can go and I can perform operations with a computer on ideas. That's really, really radical. This is also going to, impact simple things like personalization, or maybe the admissions letters that you have go out are going to be much different in the future because they're going to be personalized to every single individual student potentially. Now, I started thinking about it and I was like, what else do we do with my son at dinner that could make this even more engrossing? And I thought, well, we love to talk with him about what he's learning in school. And he loves math and he loves to play math games on the iPad. I thought, I wonder if I can get ChatGPT to play a math game with him. And so I followed up in the conversation and I said, I'd like you to play a math game with my 9-year-old to teach him about division with fractions and nutrition. Ask him questions one at a time involving Pokemon and these topics. And I'm beginning to use a technique called prompt engineering. Basically, it's the discipline of how do you structure these conversations to tap into these computational abilities. So what happens? Question 1. Pikachu and his friends are planning a meal that includes half a cup of cooked rice, but they need to divide it evenly among 3 Pokemon. How much rice will each Pokemon get? And then what does it do? It waits. It waits for his answer because it understands the concept of a game, and it understands that it's its turn to wait for his response. And I've got to keep these in sync. There we go. So when he types in 1-6, it then says, good job. It works out the math for him. And then it says, question 2, Ash wants to make a smoothie. So we think about asking these generative AI models questions, about telling them what to do, but they can ask us questions and tell us what to do. And that is a transformational capability in computing, this ability to understand and interact with a human being very seamlessly. Now, I then thought, as a computer scientist, it's neat that he can play this game with my son in ChatGPT. Can it turn it into real working educational software? And so I went and I said, let's create code for this in Python, which is a programming language. And it goes and it generates the code, and this is a snippet of it. And then this is the game that it created, the code for it, running in a browser that he can now play on an iPad or a laptop. And if you think about it, I went through a conversation where as fluidly as I could explore ideas, I could go and begin manifesting different artifacts from computing to support those ideas and that exploration. And I could go and I could write the software to create this educational game, but it's not 3 sentences or 5 sentences or however many sentences it took me. It's probably hours at best, but probably days or weeks of my time to create that educational software. And I can go and create a personalized educational game for my son in a few sentences. We haven't even begun to understand how we're going to use these incredibly impactful techniques, but also industry hasn't figured it out yet, and they're max capacity working. They act like they have it figured out, but they don't. And this is, I think, a huge opportunity for higher education to explore how in every single discipline, this new idea of using computing to apply it to human ideas is going to transform that discipline and what it can do. And we are uniquely positioned to discover the things that we can do with it, but also to then teach it. So I want to talk a little bit about this future of computing that has a computing that's very different from everything we've ever seen, and kind of the excitement that we're seeing on campus with some simple examples of things that we're doing. So this is the Vanderbilt travel and business expense policy. So it's a 17-page PDF, and I joke with people and I tell them, I've had many expenses rejected because of this thing, and yet I've never bothered to read it. And that used to be true until I uploaded it to ChatGPT. And I said, please read the provided document so you can answer questions about it. And then I asked it a question that looks like the questions I actually asked. Let's assume I'm in a foreign country traveling in a taxi and it breaks down the way to an important meeting. Can I get reimbursed if I pay someone to drive me in the back of their motorcycle to the meeting, assume they were a private citizen? Don't know the answer to this out of the policy. Let's see if ChatGPT does. Based on the information provided in the document. So there's this misconception that you can't teach these models new tricks, that training them is enormously expensive and this really sophisticated technical thing, and it's not. You can simply give it the document just like you would attach a document to an email, and you can say, read it and answer questions about it. So based on the information provided in the document, the university requires travelers to select the most reasonable and economical form of transportation. Direct statement out of the document. Non-conventional transportation options are not explicitly mentioned. That's also true. Vanderbilt does not have a separate policy on ride sharing. It's a direct statement out of the document. Given these points, it seems plausible that in an emergency situation where no other reasonable and economical form of transportation is available, the cost of transportation by a private citizen's motorcycle might be considered an allowable expense. However, the university's policy does not explicitly state this, and reimbursement may be subject to review. It sounds very Vanderbilt. It might be allowed, and we'll review it. And I read it to all the chief visitors, and everybody nodded. They're like, that's right, we will review it. So I consider it fact check. Now, it's one thing to quote text from a policy that looks like it answers the question. But we've had internet search for a long time. And it kind of does that, right? You type in a question and you see a bunch of text that looks like it answers your question. It is a very different thing to understand the policy well enough to apply it and tell you if a receipt is in compliance. So I followed up in that conversation. Remember, it's all about conversation. And I said, please analyze the attached receipt and let me know if it complies. And it comes back, and I want to draw your attention to this part at the bottom, collision damage waiver. For domestic travel, the CDW should be declined as rental vehicles are fully insured through Vanderbilt's insurance portfolio. The receipt shows a charge for CDW, which may not comply if this is domestic travel. So I told it to read the policy, and it understood it well enough to then read the rental car receipt and determine that it was out of compliance. Nothing that we had in computing was remotely close to this before it came out. Now, as a software engineer, I could try to build software to do this, but it's not just me, it's me plus a team of people and probably years to even approach the level of sophistication of what we just saw. But it also shows you a new way that we're going to be in creating software and computing, which is we take the policies and the best practices and all the other things, and we simply say, take it and apply it to this. Is it in compliance? Does it follow our best practices? And suddenly it opens up computing to a whole new world of things that we couldn't apply it to before. But it also means we have a much broader array of people that can do these innovative things in computing. And every discipline now has the opportunity to do unique and new things. This is the Vanderbilt this is Vanderbilt Instructional Enrollment Report. It's a 20-page PDF of these tables. If I wanted to go and answer a question about enrollment before, what am I going to do? I'm probably going to copy and paste from this into Excel to try to calculate and visualize some things. And I'm going to struggle for a long time. So let's take it to ChatGPT. I'm going to upload it to ChatGPT, and I'm going to start off with a simple task. I want to try to get it to Excel. Please extract each page of this PDF as plain text in a separate file. And it goes through and it extracts each page, gives me a link to download each page, which is interesting, but we had tools like Adobe Acrobat that could do that before. So let's do something harder. Turn this data into Excel. And it goes and does some work and then gives me a link to a file that I can download that has that data turned into Excel. And now I can open it up and I can focus on getting work done in Excel. But the interesting thing is, why would I even go to Excel when I could just follow up in the conversation and say something like this: display 4 interesting visualizations of this data. Notice what I'm not telling it, what to visualize. It's like, surprise me, show me interesting things. And it comes back and it generates these visualizations. And now I could go back and say, well, no, I want to dig further into this, or show me this, or filter it this way, or make it black and gold so that it's Vanderbilt colors. And as fast as I can think of ideas and questions, I can begin exploring them within it supporting me in that exploration. I don't have to struggle with bad software that my profession has been thrusting on you for a very long time. Now I can go and sort of fluidly and interact and it helps me. Or what about PowerPoint? So I uploaded my slide template and I said, save each visualization as an image, then insert each of these images as separate slides into the attached PowerPoint. And I told it how I wanted it formatted, and I said, put a text box next to each image describing what's in it. And it goes and it generates the PowerPoint presentation, and then I click on it and download it, and here's the PowerPoint that it created. It's taken each of those visualizations, it's made them into a separate slide, it's put a description of what each visualization is next to it. Now I can think about, what is the message I want to communicate in this presentation, as opposed to how do I mess around in PowerPoint and get all these tools and buttons to make it look right and do the things. I can focus on, what do I want to know about our enrollment data? What do I want to present to people? What's the message to convey? This is shocking, but for a reason that everybody misses. And every day I wake up in the news, hoping the news will have picked up on it and made a big deal out of it. Something happened to make this possible that you're not seeing. And I want you to imagine you go into your backyard and you pick up a shovel. And right before you go to dig with your shovel looks down and sees that there's a rock in the way. It jumps out of your hands. Your shovel builds itself a pickaxe. Your shovel uses the pickaxe to break up the rock. And then the shovel jumps back in your hands and you continue digging. That is, your tool builds itself a tool and uses it. And that's exactly what happened in that conversation. When I said save each visualization as an image and then put it into that PowerPoint, used to when you go to ChatGPT, they would show it much more explicitly. This big gray box would pop up, and that was ChatGPT tool building. It built its own tool. And if you clicked on that gray box, they would show you the tool it built. And the tool it built was software. It coded in Python dynamically, and it translated what I was asking it to do And it says, well, I can't do that myself, but I can write software to do that. And it wrote a software program to do it. It executed its own program. It looked and determined if the result looked right or not. If not, it edited its own program, and then it just handed back to me the presentation. Now, I showed this to my students, the full code, in my software engineering in the age of AI class, the PhD level class, that how many of you, given 30 minutes right now at the end of class, could from scratch write this program? No hands went up, including mine. Now, if you think about this level of advance, when we discovered that chimpanzees were using blades of grass to extract termites out of termite mounds, we said, my gosh, animals build tools. This is the most exciting thing. And yet we have software that is coding it like senior software level engineers, and it's translating high level desires and goals into computation. It is helping us accomplish things with computing as opposed to error message and like, no, figure out how to get it from this tool to this tool. It just seamlessly helps you now. So there's two big things that are happening in computing that are going to be transformative. One is it has new and unique capabilities. We can apply computation to things like human ideas, like create a Pokemon battle story, average US grocery, and many, many wilder things that we can do. But then the second thing is it's a totally new interface to computing, where you go and describe what you're trying to accomplish, and it translates it into computation. And there's many different ways it can do it beyond what I'm showing here. And this is going to democratize who can be an innovator. You don't have to go hire a bunch of computer scientists anymore. Any discipline, any department can go and rethink the tools that they're using and how they apply them. And it is a completely undiscovered, world out there, and every single department has an opportunity to innovate. Now I'm going to give you some quick examples of this new world of computing that are going to be very relevant to us to look at. And one of the most exciting ones to me is that this changes how we discover and access information. One of the things we do really badly with software is give you ways of discovering and accessing information. So we're going to start off with a really simple example. Let's say you're in the field and you need to know how to use a piece of critical equipment. In this case, I have a hotel coffee maker that I could not figure out. And you upload a photo of it to ChatGPT and you say, explain to me step by step how to use this. And it comes back with a complete list of instructions on how to use it. Now you think about it in the movie The Matrix, there's this scene where Trinity needs to be able to fly a helicopter to save everybody, and she doesn't know how. So they download into her brain the instructions, and then she saves everybody. Now we're not quite there yet, but this feels to me as a computer scientist like we're moving in that direction. Or let's say you have some old sushi in the fridge, and you take a picture of it and you say, give me step-by-step plans to make this. And then it comes back with a complete list of materials that you need, like sushi rice and cream cheese and nori seaweed sheets. And then it comes back with the full instructions to make it. Now let's think about this. If this is all that generative AI was take a picture of an arbitrary object on this planet and give me an approximation of how to make it, that would be the most revolutionary advance from a technical perspective of my lifetime. And this is one of like an infinite number of things that it can do. Now, by the way, if you took all the PhDs probably in the world, all the supercomputing in the world, and you say, build a system, you can take a picture of something, it'll tell you how to make it, we could not have done it. And then overnight, a switch was flipped, and now it's possible. But what's really exciting about this is not that it'll tell me how to build it, it's that when I gather all the ingredients, and I put them on the counter, and I say, here's what I bought, and I bought Cabernet Sauvignon cheddar cheese spread rather than cream cheese, and I bought yellow rice rather than sushi rice, and seaweed snacks rather than nori sheets. And I say, here's what I bought. It'll say, well, you bought Cabernet Sauvignon and cheddar cheese spread instead of cream cheese. You bought yellow rice instead of sushi rice. You bought roasted seaweed snacks instead of nori sheets. And it's not just that it can tell me how to do it, it's that it can interactively guide me through it. And so the other day I had both of my HVAC units go out of my house. This is a real fun thing to have happen. And the guy's like, here's your huge bill to replace them all. And here's all these pictures I took of my, meters and things that I connected to your units that proves that you need a new one. And I'm like, I look at this, I don't know what to do. But I uploaded it to ChatGPT and I'm like, what does this tell you about my units? And it's basically like you have these types of leaks. It's going to be very expensive. If your units are over 10 years old, you should consider replacing them, which is exactly what the guy told me. I mean, these things it's wild, the capabilities. And we have no idea. We haven't even begun to invent all the ways to use this. Now, as a last example, and I really want to emphasize this one, because I think it's important on campuses, is the innovators in computing do not have to be only in your computer science department anymore. Computing is something different now that anybody can be a leader in. And so I'm going to give you a simple example of this. My son has always been collecting things. When he was little, we'd be at a park and he'd collect rocks and sticks and want to put them into the car. And then he got older and we'd go to the grocery store and he wanted Pokemon cards, which he would bring home. And then he's gotten older now and he's like, shoes. And so I looked at him the other morning and I said, buddy, you know what you need? And he's like, what, Dad? And I was like, inventory management. And he looked at me and he was like, this is another ChatGPT thing, isn't it? And I'm like, yes. And so we built this prompt together. And here's the prompt. Whenever I give you a photo, create an inventory of what I gave you with approximate price. Keep the inventory up to date as I add pictures. And then he knew what to do. He went and took a picture of his Air Jordan shoes. And it says item Air Jordan basketball shoes, description red colorway with iconic Jumpman logo. And then he took a picture of his Vans. And then it comes back and here's your updated inventory. Item Air Jordan basketball shoes, item Vans skate shoes. It has description, condition, approximate price. I couldn't build that system as a computer scientist. I could not build that inventory management system. So 2 sentences, my 11-year-old can build a system that I could not build before. And why? Because it's built in with probably almost every imaginable object on the earth. And it can read and interpret pictures and do things like condition and price. This is transformative. And it's an opportunity for every single department to figure out what do we do with this and how do we teach it. Now, I think what universities need to be teaching is not artificial intelligence. Not how do we come up with some artificial substitute for your critical thinking. Like, I think that's the opposite of what we want. And I certainly don't want my creativity and critical thinking replaced by this. But augmented intelligence, I think, is where we need to be thinking. How do we amplify and augment human creativity and critical thinking with new tools in the right time, the right context? And basically give people the equivalent of like an exoskeleton for the mind. You put this on at certain times to solve bigger and harder problems in new ways, but you have to learn how to drive it and use it correctly. You also have to learn when to take it off so that your muscles don't atrophy. And all of these same things are true with this technology. So what does a university do to get there? So I'm going to go through a couple simple things. There's so much more. We've been doing this for about 2 years at Vanderbilt. The first thing is that you're probably being inundated, like we are, with everybody who's got an AI product to sell you. And the truth is right now, if that AI product isn't OpenAI's ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude or Google Gemini or Meta Llama, these three, the chat interfaces, you probably shouldn't be buying. And most of these chat interfaces are super cheap, even if you go directly to them, of like 20 to 200 bucks a month. If you're just an individual user and you buy a license, you can get it cheaper, like down to 15 maybe, if you have enough people. But this is the really important stuff, is chat. Most of the advanced stuff is chat. Most of the other stuff is just snake oil, in my opinion. At Vanderbilt, we started looking at this. And early days, we said, well, we could procure this for like $15 or $20 per month per user. We'd like to give it to everybody on campus. Now, what can we do? And so we ended up building our own software that allows us to procure basically on a per message basis. So rather than paying for an unlimited amount per user per month, we pay for every single message that somebody submits. But it allows us to go and procure from OpenAI, procure from Anthropic, to procure from Meta, from all the different vendors. It guarantees that they will never try it on anything. And doing this, our cost per user is about $2 a month per user. We turned it on for all 18,000 faculty, staff, students on campus. About 6,000 actually log in and use it. And our cost for those 6,000 users with no limitations, no saying you can't do that, it's too big, is about $2 a month. So it can be, and by the way, our software is free if you want to take it and download it and use it. Another important thing is that interdisciplinary innovation is really important. So we launched the Vanderbilt Initiative for the Future of Learning in Generative AI, and this was our interdisciplinary approach to this. And the basic formula that we used was, there were a bunch of us on campus that you could think of as, at that time, ChatGPT zealots, like I was one of them. And we went and collected, and we said, we're going to go and do this, and we're going to staged basically lots of workshops, lots of show and tell across campus, lots of opportunities. And then we met with all the deans, and the dean said, well, here's the other zealots that you don't know about. And we all got together and we started hosting talks and workshops and trainings. And we did like 50 or 60, I think, the first year on campus. And the result was is that I might not have the example that gets somebody in history excited, but my collaborator who's in French, for example, she might come up with an example that gets them excited. And so by having a group, we would end up getting somebody else excited who would then go and build the examples for their discipline and say, this is why we should care about this, what we should start doing. We did this both on faculty and staff, as well as students, but we're really focused on faculty and staff first. And then the final thing I'll say is that the other thing that Vanderbilt did really well, and our vice provost for faculty affairs did really well, is from the very beginning, she said we need to have a policy that promotes innovation, responsible innovation and thinking about it. And our policy from the very beginning was, it's up to individual faculty members what happens in their class. They want to use it, they can use it. If they don't want to use it, they don't have to. But we're not going to ban it across campus. In fact, we're going to write a policy that says that we think this is an important innovative technology and encourages you to go explore it and links to resources and all these other things. And this has been really effective because from the beginning, it's always been something that is exciting, it's new, but your faculty member will decide what's appropriate for their class. And so we kind of struck a very important balance. But it also told staff that we care about this, and if you can find ways of doing innovative things in operations, you can do it. And so we work with operational groups across campus. So I lead a team that basically works with everybody from the endowment to alumni relations to student affairs, and we go and we figure out ways to use generative AI in what they're doing. And amazing use cases, and a lot of them are staff driven, of seeing these really exciting things they could do. So if you'd like to learn more about this, I have a whole bunch of classes on generative AI on Coursera. Generative AI for university leaders is totally free. I did that one with the CEO of Coursera, or the prior CEO of Coursera, and Andrew Hang, but that's a totally free class. And then I have some links here as well. So I think we're in a tight time, but I'll be around tonight and later. So thank you so much.